Hey guys, good evening. Welcome to our February Wellness Focal Point Topics webinar. I'm so glad you guys could join me. If you are jumping on now, we're going to talk about some hormones and how those play a role in our lives, specifically for females. Men, this would be a great learning opportunity for you. So it'd be great if you came on in and you joined us and you listened. It'll help you in your relationships with women. Another thing that I do want to say is sometimes the hormones that we're going to discuss today definitely can cause some confusion. So that's why I wanted to clear up things. I know the normal hormones that we talk about are estrogen, testosterone, things of that nature, and how those can be out of order and cause problems in other places in your life. But today I want to talk about dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. They're not interchangeable. One of them causes the others to do different things, and that happens with every single one of those hormones. It also plays a part into your testosterone and estrogen production or lack thereof. And it can cause some issues in the bedroom, which is what we are going to talk about today. We are all grown, so it's fine to talk about these things. I want to help you guys, and I want you to understand, especially women that are in that 35 to 45 mark, why we're having problems with libido, why you're tired all the time, why you are experiencing the things that you're experiencing, and try to help you just a little bit on this free tip of what you can do to try to kind of circumvent that. If you come on for the replay, just make sure you pop in the comments, tell us you're here, say hi. We will do this every month. There will be a different topic every month that kind of circulates around what I do and the people that I see. So these videos are definitely great resources. It's free of charge. There isn't anything that's going to be sold. You can have opportunities to join things if you want, which we'll talk about at the end. But this is totally a labor of love, where I talk to you about the things that plagued me the most throughout my life and how I didn't understand those, and that I see a need for other people to understand them as well. Previous to this, we talked about nutrition through food. I did a side video on meal prep. So just stay tuned. There's something every month, every first Sunday of the month we do this. So join me, tell your friends, share, and make sure that you follow Sacred Transformation Apothecary and Wellness Care. And if you're not a member of the Wellness Focal Point group, make sure you join that so that you can get access to free resources, because that's the only place that I put them. So anytime we talk about things like meal prep and we go into detail, or I share my favorite websites or nutritional advice or hormone advice or whatever advice it may be, you will find that in guides in the Wellness Focal Point group. When I'm finished, I will put a link to that group in the comments so you can access that easily. And of course, if you have any questions, please, by all means, put them in the comments, and I will either go back and answer them through text in the comments, or if I see them appear while I'm talking, I will take a segue and talk about them in more detail. All right, so dopamine is up first. Everybody probably knows what dopamine means, but I'll go ahead and give you the actual definition. It is a compound that is present in the body as a neurotransmitter, and it's the precursor of other substances, including epinephrine. So if you get real excited and you get super hyper, your dopamine is going to react to then cause a chain reaction to cause your epinephrine to react, which is what gives you your adrenaline. It's what makes you rush. It's that lovely thing you feel when you're working out or having sex or just getting super excited about something. So dopamine has to occur first. It is a neurotransmitter. It's a hormone and a neurotransmitter. So that means that it's something that is going on inside your brain. And if your dopamine is out of whack, I'm going to tell you straight off rip, everything else will be as too. So you're going to have a problem with your estrogen. You're going to have a problem with your mood. It's going to be hard for you to be happy. It's going to be hard for you to be very excited. And you want to get the dopamine flowing. If you're someone who is prone to migraines, dopamine also plays a role in that, as well as serotonin, but I'll tell you about that in a second. One thing that we really need to pay attention to with dopamine is that estrogen, this is one of the hormones and neurotransmitters that plays the biggest role when it comes to estrogen. Your estrogen plays a large role in the overall mood of a woman. So let me say that again. Your dopamine plays a large role in estrogen production in the overall mood of women. So if the dopamine is not where it needs to be, you can guarantee your estrogen is not going to be where it needs to be. Estrogen increases dopamine, the synthesis of that, which means your body using it and fueling the areas that it needs to fuel with dopamine. Your estrogen is what helps your body to do that. And so it decreases the degradation of the dopamine. Your estrogen will do that for you. So that's another very important piece. When estrogen is too low, dopamine cannot get any higher because you need estrogen in order to push your dopamine. It improves your working memory as well as decision making and pleasure. So let's talk about libido off rip. If libido is low, please know that so is estrogen and dopamine. So the number one thing we want to do is push the dopamine up to further synthesize the estrogen that is running through the body. So in order to bring the estrogen up, if estrogen is too high, chances are your dopamine is still going to be low because the synthesis is not happening correctly in the body. Your hormones are so interlinked with your brain and the way that your body just moves. And I don't mean physical moving, but the way it moves in general, the way that it works in general. Everything is so closely linked and related. That is why it's super important to understand how these things work, because if we don't, we get in that hamster wheel and we struggle and we are not able to get our hormones and neurotransmitters to work in the proper way. And anytime this happens, especially for women, we're going to see that fatigue, the libido just disappear from us. A lot of us think that we're perimenopausal, and I'm not saying you're not, but a lot of us think that we're perimenopausal because the first thing we see is a decrease in libido. That decrease in libido is happening because the estrogen is out of order. And when the estrogen is out of order, it creates a domino effect for all of the hormones and neurotransmitters that we are going to talk about today. And so obviously, I know everybody hates it, but the easiest and quickest way to release your dopamine and get it to work correctly is to work out. Do something that is going to make you sweat, make you a little bit out of breath, and release that dopamine so you can feel that feeling of, So if you go for a run, or you're on the treadmill, or the stair climber, or the elliptical machine, or you do some yoga, or you do some, calisthenics, or HIIT, bike, Peloton, whatever it is, you want to do that enough until that dopamine pushes the epinephrine to surge, which then pushes the adrenaline to surge, and you'll literally feel it from the bottom, that sacral energy that's down in the bottom near your root chakra as well. You're literally going to feel that come up all the way, and it's going to bubble up, and it's going to explode at the top, and you're going to be like, yes, you'll feel it. Sometimes it'll even take your breath. If you have not had synthesis of dopamine correctly for a really long time, you're going to know when that dopamine kicks in, because it's going to be that, boom feeling, and you're gonna be like, yes. And it may only last a few minutes, might last you up to 30 minutes, could last you up to an hour, but the dopamine is super important. So you want to make sure you're hitting that dopamine center at least once a day in order to be able to make your hormones work correctly, and also for you and your neurotransmitters to also work correctly. Okay, so next is serotonin. Again, serotonin and dopamine are both neurotransmitters, but they're also classified as hormones. So serotonin, which is also known as 5-HT, it's a neurotransmitter, and it acts as a hormone. So there's a dual situation happening here. As the neurotransmitter called serotonin carries messages between the nerve cell in your brain and throughout your body, again, we have to have working dopamine, oxytocin, estrogen, epinephrine, adrenaline, testosterone happening. That has to happen in the body for everything to work correctly. And so serotonin is an important contributor to your well-being. So I had a doctor for migraines. I went to a specialist, probably like 15 years ago. And one of the things that she said to me that I thought was just the most beautiful thing in the world, because no westernized medical doctor have ever explained it to me like this. She said, your happy juice is on the floor, and your happy juice, aka serotonin, we need to raise that. We need to bring that up through what you're eating and through your physical body and what you're doing in order to raise that. So again, we want to raise that serotonin at least once a day. It should do it naturally. But I'm here to tell you that if you suffer from anxiety or depression in any way, even if it's the slightest amount, serotonin goes and it stays there. And so if you're somebody who suffers from severe anxiety, severe depression, if you're somebody that has ADHD, serotonin is a hard one. It's a very hard one. And you have to make a conscious choice every day to want to work towards raising serotonin. Now, something else that is very important about this, estrogen, here we go again, especially for my ladies. And don't get it twisted, men have estrogen. You have that hormone in your body. You just have more testosterone than you do estrogen, and we have more estrogen than we do testosterone. Unless you're someone that suffers from like endometriosis or PCOS, because then you've usually got testosterone that's too high, estrogen that's too low, or you're pushed way far out and you're in estrogen dominance, which is the case for PCOS and endo clients. So just know serotonin is a very, 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 very important piece to this puzzle. Estrogen, again, promotes the synthesis of serotonin, and it also prevents the degradation of serotonin. So if we want our dopamine and our serotonin to work in the correct manner, and we want those neurotransmitters to be hitting correctly to keep us out of those dark moments and for us to feel happy, we have to make sure that estrogen is at the optimum level. So it also promotes the expression of serotonin receptors in your nervous system. So let's take a break and talk about the nervous system. When your nervous system is constantly unregulated, again, your estrogen is either going to be too low or too high. You're not going to be producing enough dopamine. You're not going to be producing enough serotonin, and you're going to see yourself in depression. There is no way around it. And so this is how our body works when we get to the point that we are too sad, we are too fatigued, we are burnt out, overstimulated. It's because your nervous system is constantly in fight or flight. I talk about this all the time. If you're ever watching the business page, or you're in the Wellness Focal Point group, or you even see my personal page, I'm talking about this all the time. Your body is meant for all of these to work in harmony, and what we've seen over probably the last 50 years, and it is absolutely 100% correlates to the woman going outside of the home and working and being more masculine, taking away from her children. Because do you know where most of these hormones stem from? It's your relationship with your children. So if you have children and you're working outside this home and you're completely overextended, and please don't get it twisted, I did a live video on my page last week because I was absolutely overstimulated. I was overextended. I was having a mental breakdown on live, but I wanted you all to see it. I wanted you to hear from me firsthand what I was doing to change that. And it was learning to set boundaries and saying no. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's where it starts. Dopamine and serotonin cannot do its job if your estrogen is too low or too high, and dopamine and serotonin absolutely cannot do its job if you are burnt all the way out to where you cannot catch a breath. You cannot feel good. You cannot feel happy. And I'm not saying that we're going to walk around feeling happy every day, but this is where it starts. This is how we fix this and keep ourselves from feeling overstimulated, in fight or flight, with an unregulated nervous system all the time. Dopamine and serotonin are your top two. They're your top two. They are your top two. You hear me? Okay. Which then brings me to oxytocin. So I know that you are familiar, most likely, if you have gone through childbirth, with a very potent little, it's either a capsule or a tablet. I think it's a tablet that is put on your cervix called Pitocin. I feel like Pitocin is the devil. I had it with my first pregnancy and was like, hell no. With my second, the cramps and the contractions were out of freaking control because it pushes you to go into labor. Well, oxytocin is also something that causes you to do that. People get oxytocin confused. It is the love hormone, but it's the love hormone because of childbirth. But I'll tell you other ways that it's stimulated in the body. So just to start, oxytocin is a hormone that's produced by your hypothalamus, which is back here. And it's released in the bloodstream by your pituitary gland. Its main function is to facilitate childbirth, which is one of the reasons it's called the love drug or love hormone. But oxytocin has best been known for its roles in female reproduction. So it's not just how childbirth that oxytocin comes to you. One of the best ways that oxytocin comes to you is through breastfeeding and also when you hug and cuddle your children. Now let's take it backwards to that dopamine and that serotonin and your nervous system not being regulated and you being overstimulated and burnt out. How can you cuddle with your children and love on your children and release your oxytocin if you don't even want to be touched because you're too overstimulated? Short answer, you can't. So do you see how dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin all work together to make us up to be who we are and to make our brain work correctly? The biggest thing you're going to want to do is get out of the fight or flight, which we'll get into a minute. Oxytocin actually used to be used as the drug in order to push childbirth along, and then we moved to Pitocin, which is just another like subversion of the oxytocin, but they work simultaneously. So what we want to do on a daily basis is we want to see a hit in dopamine, a hit in serotonin, and a hit in oxytocin. That's what you want to aim for every day. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right now, if you are over caffeinating, if you are over cannabising, if you are over alcoholing, and life is just lifing and you're using those as crutches to help you get through the day, no shade. But we want to pull back on those because those things essentially, and sugar, those things essentially keep the serotonin, the dopamine, and the oxytocin from releasing as normal. They numb you from feeling anything. And so the biggest lesson that you can learn about dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin in today's video is that, yes, you want those to hit and you want them to rise at least once a day, every day. But we also need to look at how the chemical makeup of those hormones makes us, how we sleep. Because how we sleep, how we work through the day, and how our brain works, overstimulation is going to lead to fatigue. Overstimulation is going to lead to fatigue. It's going to lead to low libido. It's going to lead to unhappiness. It's going to lead to an overall feeling of malice. And it's going to feel like you are raging inside if those three hormones are too low all the time. And I want to help you. I always want you to learn from my mistakes. I spent a large part of my adult life in rage mode, overstimulated, in fight or flight. There are still days I'm in fight or flight. It's just impossible. When you have kids, it's impossible. Everybody always needs something. And that's where self-care comes in. While your hormones are the most important thing, the only way that you're going to be able to regulate those is to take care of yourself. This means you're going to have to take the 10 minutes. This means you're going to have to lock the door when you go take a shower. This means that you're going to have to find some type of support system, and that is going to look different for everyone. Because I know I'm talking to single moms. I know I'm talking to two-parent households. I know I'm talking to some people who have had loss or grief. I know I'm talking to a slew of different types of situations. But the one thing remains is that self-care is number one. You cannot regulate that nervous system without taking care of yourself in the way that it needs to happen. So you literally have to be so mindful of what is going on throughout your day. You have to learn how to stand up for yourself and say no. You have to learn what your body feels like when you're overextended. So for instance, me, when I am overextended, the overwhelm just bubbles up out of me. I have a hard time controlling my mouth. I have a hard time controlling my rage. Things get on my nerves so easily. I may not say anything, but boy, you will see it all over my face. I will become extremely tired, libido gone. There, literally at the beginning of my 30s, I thought there was literally something wrong with me, which there was. I was overstimulated. I was in fight or flight. All three hormones were not working correctly for me, and it was rough because I did not see any light at the end of the tunnel. And then I learned all of these things, so that's why I want to share them with you. So self-care has to be number one on your list. So this is what we're going to take away from today's webinar. Self-care, 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 self-care. Some type of workout to push the dopamine every day. so that we can get the adrenaline pumping, we can get that epinephrine working how it's supposed to work. Those can work against each other or towards each other to make you feel happy and also relaxed. And then this can look like anything: yoga, workout machine, drills of some sort, calisthenics, HIIT, whatever you want to do. We just want to get the blood pumping, because the blood pumping releases more oxygen. We release more oxygen, which then helps our neurotransmitters work and helps those hormones be at the levels that they need to be at. We also want the same goal for serotonin. So we want to get that happy juice up at least once a day. So find something that makes you happy. I don't care if it's watching your favorite show for 45 minutes on Hulu, if it is reading, if it is cooking, whatever that is. Find something that you like and make sure you do it once a day. And then oxytocin, it doesn't just come from children. That is one of the main contributors, but hugging anyone, even if you're not a hugger. I'm not a hugger. I had to learn how to become a hugger. So you want to make sure you're getting some type of cuddling and loving in once a day. And now here's the kicker for y'all. I'm going to say that word, the S word that has 3 letters. I don't know what the Facebook rules are on this, but you want to make sure we getting it in. Let's start with once a week. Even if that's by yourself, that is going to release those same hormones and keep you happy. Ladies, don't feel embarrassed. Don't act like it hasn't been done since the dark ages. Do what you got to do. Do what you need to do for yourself, because we have to make sure that dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin are releasing. Oxytocin is a huge part of that by yourself time or with your partner time. And so those are the 2 easiest ways. Hug your kids, cuddle with your kids, hug your partner, cuddle with your partner, or do by yourself or with somebody. So if you learn anything from today, those are going to be the takeaways. Self-care, pushing that dopamine through workout and getting the physical blood pumping, get the oxygen running through the body. We're going to make sure we do something every day that makes us happy, no matter how silly that is. I don't care if it is crocheting. And then we are going to push oxytocin through love, hugs, touch, stimulation. Another huge part with oxytocin that you can get to release very easily is nipple stimulation. Please do not let this conversation deter you. I understand that it is taboo and people don't want to talk about it, but these are things that women specifically should be doing. You should be doing these things all the time, every day, to make sure that we're getting dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin to release, which is then going to help your estrogen. And then your estrogen is going to play a role in helping dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. So that is, in a nutshell, how all of those hormones work. We'll get into estrogen and all of those things in another webinar throughout this year. But I just wanted to give you guys a good understanding of the 3 top hormones that work the most in your favor. And when they are not working correctly, they are going to cause the most harm. And if those 3 are not working correctly, you can bet your bottom dollar that estrogen is also not going to be working correctly. And another thing is, if you're super tired and you're fatigued, or you're staying up really late at night and not able to sleep, it's because those 3 hormones and neurotransmitters are not working correctly, which is thus causing the estrogen not to work correctly, which is causing your cortisol to be way too high. Number 1 lesson with cortisol: if you have a lot of weight around the belly, the thighs, and the hips, you cannot sleep at night, or you're tired all the time, I can 100% guarantee that cortisol is out of order. All right, so here's the offerings. Divine Woman Program. You can start at any time. Self-paced program, lasts 3 months. We get the hormones in order. You're put on special supplements, told how to eat, told how to release your trauma, told how all these hormones work, and how you can be assisted in getting them together. That program is available. You sign a contract and you go into contract for 3 months with me. I become your practitioner. We do weekly calls. It's a really awesome program, which includes blood work and supplements and meal plan, all of the above. You can also stick around in the Wellness Focal Point for free resources on hormones and different things of that nature. I also have access to get your blood work panel done. So if you need estrogen, we need to figure out where that's sitting. Very affordable cost. It's per test. You do it through Quest Diagnostics. They send me back the results. We talk about it. Cortisol is another big one. You can do the cortisol panel as well. And there are bundles where you can bundle together hormones of all types and have them checked. And there are also a plethora of other things. So immunity, where you're sitting with other things that go outside of hormones. So just basically wellness in general, the blood work that can be done for that. We can test those. And again, they are very affordable. No, your insurance does not cover them, but they are affordable. They are not, thousands of dollars. Some of them are not even hundreds of dollars. So that is an opportunity for you as well. If you need some assistance with that, I can do a discovery session and then do blood work as long as the blood work is paid for. As always, discovery sessions are 20-minute calls with me that are absolutely free. If you just want to see what's up, you want to talk about what programs I offer, tell me what's going on in your life, and we figure out what the best plan of action is from there, absolutely, we can do that. You can book them. I'll put the link in the comments. Sorry guys, my eyes are itching. So the last thing is I do a 21-day challenge, which gives you a meal plan. It's $50. It's evergreen program as well, self-paced. It's a combination of module and email. You go through there. It is going to restore your relationship with food and help you see how to eat, to show you how to shop. And it makes it super easy for you and breaks it down so that you can continue to do that on your own when you're finished with that 3-week thing. And there is one 30-minute coaching call at the end of that with me to kind of solidify what you've done and figure out where you're going to go from there. So that's what I got for you. Hormones are super, super, super important. They are not something that should be shunned and not talked about. Low libido in women, again, not something that should be shunned and not talked about. It doesn't always mean that you're perimenopausal or that there's something wrong. It can literally just be a combination of hormones that are not working correctly and at optimum level. And it could be that your pH balance is out of whack in both urine and saliva. No, I am not talking about vaginal, which we will have a whole video on that as well later this year. I thank you guys for joining me for these webinars. It's always a pleasure to be able to give you an outlook on how things work in the body so you can better understand that and to give you some free knowledge. I'm all about it. I want to see women be happy. I want to see them succeed in ways outside of the office or being an entrepreneur or being a mom. You have to worry about you sometimes. And that is going to look selfish to people who are always getting everything from you but not giving anything in return. It's time we put our foot down. It's time we are honest. It's time we take a good look at the things that are plaguing us and making us overstimulated, making us in fight or flight, making our nervous system completely freaking unregulated to the point that we look like crazies. We're not crazies. We need help. And that is what I'm here for. So that is it in a nutshell. Video will be on YouTube later this week. So if you got any questions, as always, put them in the comments and I will get to them as soon as I see them. I love you guys. I thank you so much for supporting. And if there's any way that I can help you, I am here for that. So I will catch you next month on the first Sunday in March. I believe that'll be March 5th as well. Oh, nope, we got a leap year, so it will be a different day. Probably March 4th. But anyway, I'll see you guys next month for another great webinar. I appreciate your time and I'll see you later. Make sure you join the Wellness Focal Point. Again, I'll put the link in the comments. And if there's anything I can do to help you, just send me a DM. Love you guys. Bye. Get that dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin up. Let's do it. And just so you know I said bye, but I still think it's very important. Self-care, something that makes you happy. It's time for yourself. Make sure you get some physical exertion in to make you sweat and make that adrenaline pump. All right, there you go. There's your takeaways. Have a great evening. Bye, guys.